Wellness Sexuality Practice. So this is a 5-step practice that's designed to open up sensation in the body. And we're talking about all kinds of sensation. Touch, sense, smell, not necessarily sexual, just wake you up. And then when your awareness of sensation starts to wake up, you start to feel more pleasure, right? Like you start to feel the air on your skin or the wind blowing through your hair, and it starts to feel really good. This practice brings you into the present moment because you can't feel in your body if you're in the future or the past. It helps you deeply relax, and the more you relax, the more receptive you become to the stimulation you're getting from your environment. What else did I say? Oh, and as you start to relax into sensation, your erotic sensation starts to emerge, even before you have any genital contact. So it increases your aliveness, your vitality, and it promotes longevity. Now, the Taoists have known about this for years. They do this work called cultivating microcosmic orbit, like chi energy. They know that the secret to long life is cultivating this energy and moving it also through the sexual channels. And when you do this practice, you deepen your connection with your partner and you can have more intimacy. All right, let's see. Next slide. Level 1. Level 1 is sensing. I learned from a woman named Charlotte Selver back in the 80s. Anyone ever heard of her? She was like this amazing trendsetter. She was teaching somatic practices before we'd even heard of them. So back in the 80s, I learned this practice called sensory awareness. And it was all about this like waking up in the body. So this practice, which I now weave into level 1 of my practice, is a sensual practice, but it's not sexual. And it's designed to bring you into your body. And what we do in sensing is we use very light, focused touch, and also very subtle movement, like as subtle as just shifting from one hip back to center to the other side, like really subtle movement. And what this does is it starts to open up the physiology, and you start to feel sensation open up in other parts of your body. So it cultivates this genuine aliveness. I mean, we're here to be in our bodies, and our bodies have this capacity to be incredibly alive and receptive, like sea anemones, you know, just that kind of. So that's what this cultivates. And you can do this practice alone. You know, I'll guide you through it, or you can do it with a partner. Level 2, sense communication. So this is when you start to bring language into the practice. You start to speak from direct experience. Right now, I'm feeling some warmth in my hip, a little tightness there, and as I shift to the other side, I can feel the tightness let go and a little bit of warmth circling around my hip to my back. Like really subtle, sense-guided language. And what happens is that when you speak in this way, the person you're speaking to actually can get it and they can feel it in their own body. So it's a really great way to communicate. I also bring in another piece, which is human design. And I'm not going to talk about that much today, but one of the things we do in human design is discover our energetic blueprint and how we best need to communicate and receive communication. So I teach you ways to communicate to your partner, not just the sense, like the body base, but other ways to communicate so they can really hear you. So this sense communication gives you a language, a communication tool that you can use in any aspect of your life and bring into your sex. And this part, again, you know, you can just learn it with me or you can learn it with your partner. Okay. And clearly, you know, this piece, when you learn how to communicate in this way, your reactivity drops away. And then you can really respond in a loving manner, which is way more helpful in a relationship. Okay, now this is probably what you all came here to hear about. Level 3, now we're entering into the sexual domain. This is called female stroking. And this female stroking is a blend of the first 2 levels tantric practices and orgasmic meditation. So I've taken it and I've kind of changed it up a little bit. This is a partnered practice, and one of the partners is a woman. And essentially what happens is the woman removes her pants, lies down in a space called a nest. Her partner, who's going to stroke her, can be a man or a woman, remains fully clothed. And he sits next to her on her right side and strokes her clitoris for 20 minutes. And there's all these other pieces that come in, but essentially it's a stroking practice. Both people need to be trained on how to do this because you want to do it well and you want to do it right. So it's a practice that lasts 20 minutes. When it's over, she puts her pants on, they do practice some sense communication, and they're done. So just take that in for a moment, because the first time I heard about it, I was like, what? All right. Now, let me tell you a little bit more about it. What makes this work really well? The container. It's a very structured practice with a very tight container. And this is really important for both who practice, especially the woman. Because women, as you know, have a highly developed vigilance center, which means we're constantly scanning the environment to make sure it's safe. The doors are locked, the kids are in bed. You know that? Like, we're really good at that. And when our vigilance center is activated, it's really hard for us to just let go and relax. So this practice is designed to help the woman relax her vigilance center. It also really relaxes the person who's stroking her. Now, this is where I get my cheat sheet out because I get so excited I forget what I want to say. Okay, so other ways that we create a tight container. You create this nest, this sacred place that you do this practice in. It's not on the bed, preferably not in the bedroom, on the floor somewhere else. And the idea is you are creating a space that's not associated with sex, because this is a sexual practice, but it is not sex. It's not foreplay, it's not I'll do you if you do me. It's simply a practice in a contained amount of time that cultivates sexual energy. So in other ways we create containment is that it's timed. You bring to the nest all the accoutrements, lots of blankets, pillows, a good pillow for the stroking person to sit on, a timer, really great lube, and the timer is really important. You start the timer when you start the stroking, and when the timer goes off, it's done. You don't go over the time. Again, that really relaxes the woman who's being stroked because she knows. It's like you know where the doors are and you know when it's going to end. So that helps you relax. It's very important to know that this is not for pleasing either partner. So in other words, this is another way that it's safe. It's not a practice about bringing your partner to climax. It's not a practice about pleasing your partner. So the person who's stroking is literally stroking for their own pleasure. So when the stroking practice begins, the stroking partner puts his finger or her finger on the clitoris and starts. And all that's required is that the person who's lying down, the woman, feel the sensation at the point of contact and as it travels through her body. That's it. And all he is, or she, it needs to do is feel the sensation at the tip of the finger and notice what travels through his or her body. Whoa. Just think about that. You're not there to make them feel better. And the woman who's receiving is not there to make you feel like you're doing it right. It's like all these trappings just get dropped and peeled away. What else did I not say? All right, let me talk about the communication piece, because this is another way that keeps the container really tight and safe for both parties. There's a practice called safe porting. So before the stroker starts to stroke, he will say to his partner, I'm going to step over you, I'm going to stroke your pussy, or whatever language you like to use, and so on. So each step of the way, she knows what's coming, so she can relax. During the practice, there's this communication that occurs. Again, we're practicing the sense communication that they've already learned. So she can say something like, could you give me a little more pressure? And so she can simply direct her stroker to the place of highest sensation by making very simple requests. It's mind-blowing when women learn how to make these kinds of requests. When they're not in sex, and then imagine what happens when you go back to sex or any other part of your life. On the same hand, the person who's stroking can make offers. Would you like a little faster stroke? And so on. So there's this communication that's going on throughout the yom. In the beginning, right before they start, they actually sit opposite each other and practice sense communication and describe how they're feeling before they even begin as a way to connect. And at the end, there's another opportunity for the communication where they share what they felt in a particular moment. So you've got communication happening in a way that's really simple, so it doesn't bring you up into your head. It's timed, it's contained, it's totally goalless. Here's another important piece. In our culture, we talk about orgasm, having lots of orgasms. In this practice, I make a distinction between orgasm or orgasmic energy and climax. So climax is when a guy ejaculates and goes over, and for a woman when there's contractions and she goes over. You know what that's like. It's a climax. It's like boom. It's like a point of completion. And in our culture, in most sex, traditionally the way we've been taught or conditioned, everything is geared towards that moment of and then you go to sleep. This practice is about orgasmic energy. Now, the Taoists have known about this for centuries. It's that flow that runs from head to toe. It can get started in the genitals, but it travels throughout your body. Women know this energy really well. Men have it too. So when a person is stroking a woman, he can start to tap into that orgasmic energy that flows through his system. So it has ups and downs and valleys, and it can go for hours. Now, in the practice, you're doing it for 20 minutes, but when you're done and you move into your day, you've got this access to this energy that just infuses your life. I mean, it totally changed me. I didn't say this in my story, but I'll mention it now. I went to see my gynecologist after I'd been doing this practice for 6 months, and she said, oh my God, she said, you have the genitals of like a 30-year-old. What have you been doing? So, I mean, it brings blood and circulation to the area. So imagine what kind of healing can happen here. So we're talking about healing from trauma, healing from any kind of scar tissue, like emotional healing. The possibilities are amazing. So, did I leave anything out? Oh, yeah, this is important. So you've got a couple who are starting to do this practice. When they're done, they put the nest away and they go about their day. It's really, really important that they don't, they're kind of turned on, right? It's really important that they don't go into the bedroom and start having sex. You know why? Because if you have sex after this practice, you're going to start associating sex with this, and then you're going to start getting into the nest going, ooh, I wonder if he's going to ask, or I wonder if she's going to want to, and then you see what happens? So what we're doing is we're stripping away all kinds of commerce. So you get in, you get out, and it's over. But boy, it's really great. Okay, so that's really, really important. Okay. And I do training in this. Couples will come to me and I will teach them all the exquisite steps. I haven't taken you through the steps, but I wanted to give you the flavor of what's possible here. Male stroking. Okay. This is very similar to female stroking, except now we have the man lying down, pants off, the woman fully clothed, or the man fully clothed. And all the parameters apply to this that apply to the female stroking practice. It's timed, you do sense communication in the beginning. The person who's stroking lets the person who's receiving what's happening from moment to, well, not moment to moment, but you basically let them know when you're going to do make major shifts or adjustments so they can relax, okay? Now, this is phenomenal. this practice is absolutely phenomenal because guys, honestly, how many of you have just laid down and allowed someone to just stroke your genitals for their own pleasure for 20 minutes without wanting anything of you? Without you needing to get hard or sexy or, without you evaluating how your penis is doing, right? This is really revelatory for the men. The practice looks a little different because the genitalia is different, but essentially the person stroking just touches and plays with the men's genitalia for their own pleasure. Now that's pretty radical too. You're not doing this to get him off, to give him a good hand job, to pay back some Ozy from earlier in the day. You're just dropping into the pleasure of, whoa, what's here? And then for the man who's the strokee or the receiver, it's just so phenomenal. He doesn't have to worry about if he's doing it right, or it's like he can drop into this place of just letting go and surrendering and seeing what will happen. And it's like time stands still. So that's the male stroking practice. Obviously, for all of them, what's happening here is connection. And I know you know this from in other ways, but I just want to say it because it's always important to say. The best way to connect with your partner is to be really grounded and present in your own self. So in these practices, your only job is to go into your own experience, your own sensation. What are you sensing in your genitals, your finger, your toes, the back of your neck? And as you really drop into what you're sensing in yourself, you are more available and present to experience your partner. It's amazing. It's like you let go of trying to get it right or do it right or questioning yourself, and you just drop into this world of sensation. And I have to tell you, it's like we have no idea as women, well, I had no idea what was available to me. I mean, I was having fun, but when I dropped into this practice, it was like, whoa, there was like a whole new world that opened up and just kept opening up for me. So this is possible for, the women in female stroking, the men in male stroking, and for both partners in both practices. It's just like exponential, just keeps growing. Now, when I work with couples, we usually start with level 1 regardless. When we get to level 3, female stroking, we stay with that for a long time. I mean, if they're into it, I invite them to do that practice for 3 to 6 months before we even consider male stroking. And this is why. This is just my belief and the belief of many others. But in our culture and our conditioning, women are sort of conditioned to follow the male, what's that word? The male trajectory around sex. So we please men, and some of us fake orgasm for men, and it's all about getting everything ready so you can put the penis in the vagina and have sex, right? So women get hijacked in their sex in this culture. I encourage couples to stay with female stroking for a really long time so the woman starts to fill up and fill up and fill up and fill up until she gets so full that she's like, oh. And then we add male stroking. Does that make sense? And in the meantime, because guys will go, well, what's in it for me if I'm the stroker? You have to try it. I mean, I'll tell you some things that happen for the men. When they're stroking, they, for the first time in their lives, maybe, I can be a little extreme sometimes, but they start to really look at women's genitals, their partner's genitals. It's like, whoa, and they get to see it grow and change, and like, whoa, what happens? They get to pay exquisite attention to this part of their partner's body that they may not have been paying as much attention to. That is mind-blowing. What else happens for the men is that they become really confident. like they really become familiar with how this works and what it feels like and what it feels like to them. So they become so much more relaxed in their ability to be with their partner, and then that carries over into their sex life. So that's two of the reasons that, or two ways that men can really benefit from being the strokers. Okay, level 5, surprise, surprise. Take it to the bedroom. So you've been practicing level 1, level 2, you've been doing some genital stroking, and sometimes with couples, that's all we'll do for a while. Like sex, intercourse is off the table because we're reconnecting them, teaching them how to really feel into themselves, communicate better, and when they're ready, let's start to play in the bedroom. So sexual high play, we're weaving it all together and let's see what happens. Sex completely changes. Again, can completely change. Just saying, instead of looking at sex as all those things that you do to lead to intercourse, you have this like huge menu of sexual options. Maybe we'll just make out for an hour or two. Maybe we'll just do some breast play. It's like the whole body is awake now, and there's so much potentiality and sensation. There's all these different ways you can have erotic connection. And then you can choose intercourse, but it's like it can be slow or fast or hard. It can be what you want because you're guiding each other through clear communication. So this can be a really fun time. And I think the thing that's so cool about this is all of a sudden you've got this wide variety of options for sex. It's just not as limited as it might have been before.